Welcome into another edition of the Giant Overreaction, the rawest, realest New York Giants content on the internet, and we got a lot of real to definitely talk about today. And you could use that as a double entendre. We got to find a way to reel back in this fan base so that we can possibly find a way to support this team. But we did get some breaking news today. We definitely got some breaking news today. And the New York Giants lost a major game against the Chicago Bears that was really right there for the taking. I almost could not believe that we lost that game. And at the conclusion of that game, as we were up by 10 points in the fourth quarter, it just kind of felt like what could go wrong was going to go wrong for the New York Giants. And that is exactly what happened. They end up losing to the Chicago Bears 24-20 yesterday. And again, a game that was right there that the New York Giants should have absolutely won this game. And instead, we're walking back, twiddling our thumbs here, trying to figure out why the New York Giants couldn't come away with the victory in this one. They've lost now their fourth game in a row. And it's not just the losing, it's how we're losing these games. And basically, we've been losing all these games in the fourth quarter. The Bears improved to 6-3 on the season, and the New York Giants fall to 2-8. It's almost unbelievable. The Bears came into Week 10 winning 5 of their last 6 games. The Giants came into Week 10 on a 3-game losing streak, allowing at least 33 points in all 3 of those losses. It's now 5 straight losses for the New York Giants at Soldier Field, 11 straight losses on the road, which is a franchise record for the New York Giants. Shout out to all my triple OGs that know all about the late 70s and how poor of a team the New York Giants were. The Bears had outgained the New York Giants 93 yards to just 12 yards at the end of the first quarter, but somehow, some way, New York led at the half in this game. But another fourth quarter collapse is definitely the reason for today's news, and you see it on the screen. Breaking news: Brian Daboll has been fired by the New York Giants. And as we have been speaking about throughout the entire duration of the offseason coming into the regular season, a rookie quarterback was not going to save Brian Daboll's job. He needed results, and quite frankly, he just didn't get the results. He's 3-19 in his last 22 games, 5-22 in his last 27 games, 5-17 versus the NFC East with 1 tie, 2-14 against the Cowboys and against the Philadelphia Eagles. And he finishes with the New York Giants 4 regular seasons here with a record of 20, 40, and 1. And that's not going to get it done when you have twice the amount of losses as you have wins. That's something where you could be begging for more time if this was season 1 or season 2, but this is the 4th season. And 4 is kind of the magic number today. 4 blown double-digit leads this season. That's a big part of why Brian Daboll was fired today. Coming into this Chicago Bears game, I felt that the New York Giants were going to have to take care of the ball. I thought that was one of the most important things for this Giants team coming in, was to take care of the ball, because we were going up against a Chicago Bears team that led the NFL in takeaways. In fact, the Chicago Bears had forced at least 3 turnovers in every one of their victories this season. We broke this down on the preview show last week, and as I was doing the research to compile all these numbers, I was basically floored that all of their victories came by forcing at least 3 turnovers. They had 3 turnovers forced against the Bengals. They had 4 turnovers forced against the Saints. Big shout out to Tyler Shuck. Big game yesterday. And now the New York Giants are actually the worst team in the NFC, official now, with the Saints having that tiebreaker on us. They had 3 turnovers forced against the Washington Commanders. They had 4 turnovers forced against the Las Vegas Raiders and 4 turnovers forced against the Dallas Cowboys. The Giants only turned the ball over 1 time in this game, but it was a critical turnover. Not only was it a turnover, the first turnover of the game, but that turnover knocked our quarterback out of the game for good. And now we're looking at Jackson Dart dealing with the concussion. And I do think that a lot of the responses from Brian Daboll in the press conference had a lot to do with the decision to fire him, because he basically went up to the podium in front of the media like a person that really didn't care about the results that ended up happening with his quarterback. And, he's basically just saying it's unfortunate. And I understand that that is the truth in the matter. It is an unfortunate situation. Jackson Dart is the kind of quarterback that it's almost necessary for him to use his legs for him to be able to be that high-level quarterback that New York Giants fans, and most importantly, the coaching staff, needs from their quarterback position to be able to garnish these victories, especially considering the type of injuries that the New York Giants have dealt with on the offensive side of the ball, and also considering how Joe Schoen and the New York Giants neglected any help outside of the quarterback position for the New York Giants offensive side of the ball. And in return, this is what you get. Now, I do want to play a clip here, but before I play the clip, we're going to kind of do things a little bit out of order today because with this kind of news, I don't think that it is truly necessary to sit up here for 3-4 hours even breaking this whole thing down. I just don't think that that would necessarily be fair to the fan base. I also don't think it would be fair to me. This is a day where I know a lot of New York Giants fans are celebrating the firing of Brian Daboll, and I understand that the results were not there. That is to be expected. But at the end of the day, I do look at this that families are on the line. Human beings are the ones that are coaching this particular team that now has a coach that is fired, that I can sit up here and say confidently, at least from my perspective and in my opinion, this is not all on Brian Daboll. But when you are the head coach of a team, the offensive side of the ball, considering that you are a quote-unquote offensive guru, is not the only side of the ball that needs to be taken care of. You have to be able to find a way to manage your team from a wide-angle perspective, and most importantly, you have to be able to micromanage each department that ultimately will give the results for the New York Giants, and in this case, they weren't getting the results. Big shout out to everybody here in the building rocking out with us today. I know the breaking news is the big news, but I do want to send a large shout out to my particular day one fan base that has been here through this entire debacle of a season. And y'all continuously show up week in and week out, which gives me more of the confidence to be able to show up for you guys week in and week out. I see that one guy is in the building. He says should have been done last year, but fuck it, better now than never. My dog, no Mets, no Nets, no Jets is in the building, says Joe Shane better be on his way too. And he also said from Bono to Bozo, which is a statement that these guys said at the podium at the beginning of the year, you know, understanding the circumstances within New York and how quickly things can shift. And man, when you look at Brian Daboll getting out the truck and Joe Shane, the masterclass gifts that we were seeing early on in their tenure, it is definitely a stark difference at this moment in time. Mac, the Giants fan, is in the building. Another fellow New York Giants content creator. He says that's one step in the right direction. Independent Outsider said we need a coach that stresses accountability. But with that, there has to be depth at positions. And that's where Shane runs into trouble. That's definitely a fact right there. We also got a couple of super chats early on in the show. Big shout out to Dean. Man, Dean has been supporting this channel in a major way. He says, I seriously cannot believe they're going to let Shane hire another coach. It's insanity. Things are going to keep spiraling. Shane must go. That is what is being reported currently right now out of New York. But don't forget, there's a lot of football left. 7 games to go. This is basically going to be an audition for everybody in that organization, everybody in that building. It's not a surefire decision right now that Joe Shane is going to be back. So again, this will be preaching patience, but definitely in a different facet than we've been accustomed to speaking on this channel. Big shout out to Dean, man. Dean has been one of our biggest supporters during this entire debacle of a season with the New York Giants, and we appreciate you helping us raise the bar, my G. We also got Independent Outsider in the building coming in, Dave Denton with the $4.99 super chat. He says, then Kafka bombs. Will he be purged completely? Maybe he's saying, will the core be purged completely? Mr. Mara battles cancer. Shane got to step up helping to find replacements. Brandon Brown as the general manager. That's definitely a possibility. I think if the Giants were leaning a little bit more towards Brandon Brown being the guy that would step in for the general manager job, it likely would have already been done. You know, a lot of people kind of viewed Brian Daboll and Joe Shane as a package deal, and I thought that that was the best way, the best format to view them in. I said this just a couple of weeks back, that if you're going to fire Brian Daboll, you might as well have Joe Shane connected to him as well and fire them both. If you're going to keep one, they were both at the end of their contract. This is going to be the final season going into 2026 for both of their contracts. If you were going to keep one of them in 2026, I think it would have made more sense to keep them both. But as I just told Dean, keep in mind that, you know, the Joe Shane decision at the end of the year, I'm sure is going to be revisited. And that's when we'll get our final true news on the front office for the New York Giants. But big shout out Dave Denton, another huge supporter over here at Authentic in the Beard. We appreciate you helping us raise the bar early on this Monday version of the Giant Overreaction. I see Marjorie's in the building. I see Kevy Witt is in the building. He said Clint Kubiak or Lou Anarumo will be the first 2 names on the list. I still got to do my deep dive on the coaching research here. Y'all know that I like to deal with things in real time. And I didn't really want to, be doing an unnecessary coaching hunt. But now that Brian Daboll has been fired, absolutely going to be something that we have to address moving forward. My dog, Jaji05, is in the building. What's going on, Ja? He said, read a stat yesterday. The Giants had 95% in the final 2 minutes of games versus the Bears. He's talking about a winning chance against the Bears, against the Broncos, and against the Cowboys, and lost all three. There was a 1 in 60,000 chance of that happening. I did read that statistic as well. I forget the account. It wasn't like a trustworthy account that I saw it from, but that seems like pretty accurate news regarding the New York Giants. Big shout out my dog Ja in the building one time. Breeze Opaid is in the building, says the Giants released an official statement from ownership on the website. Joe Schoen remains in his position as the general manager and will lead the search for a new head coach. Now, that is interesting because that says that Joe Schoen will likely be here at the end of the season and going into the 2026 season, making those decisions. But we have seen this before where John Mara has committed to one thing, which made a head coach or general manager appear to be safe. And in the long run or the long haul, the decision was definitely the polar opposite of what he had said. So I am going to stay a little bit reserved until we get to that point at the end of the season, and we'll see. But this statement here and this quote definitely tells you the thinking of the New York Giants moving forward. I see Wet Drip is in the building saying, wow, wow, wow. Yeah, man, it's definitely some, I won't say unexpected news because that was why I actually waited to go a little bit later today with the live because I felt that, with the press conference coming up I believe the press conference was scheduled for 1 p.m., that there was a possibility that we would get this news about, Brian Daboll being fired, and that is exactly what ended up happening. So I'm glad I kind of, stayed a little bit reserved on this one and waited for that news to come out because it definitely altered the direction of this particular Giant overreaction today. Some of the topics stayed in, some of them didn't. I do expect this to kind of be a bit of a shorter show today. We'll address the chat a ton as we get down towards the end of the stream. So maybe save some of your, high caliber questions for the end of the stream once we get through a little bit of breaking down this game and simultaneously doing some of the Giant overreactions over here. I see my dog Dante is in the building. What's going on, Dante? Hope all is well. Shouted you out a little earlier with the Tyler Shuck performance, man. I saw you tag me in that post. I don't know why people think Tyler Shuck is some incapable quarterback. And, as much as I made the comparisons to Daniel Jones, I still think that those two quarterbacks are very similar. Guys that are capable, but also kind of teetering that line of being a guy who is a consistently average quarterback and quarterbacks that don't have that consistency behind them that can kind of turn into mediocre quarterbacks if that is the case. But big shout out my dog Dante rocking out with us today on this Giant overreaction. Let me see. This is a Tegan Troy in the building says, why does Bowen still have a job? Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe just because they felt like they didn't have any other options there at defensive coordinator. Things really wouldn't change from a philosophy standpoint. I also think that not firing the entire staff at the end of the season and kind of addressing this in the middle of the season kind of says, hey, we're looking at Mike Kafka as possibly an option, and maybe his direction is a little bit different than the direction that we were getting from Brian Daboll. But we shall see, man. We got 7 games left to put these guys under a microscope and see if they deserve to be here next season. That one guy says how Daboll survived this long is fucking baffling. Yeah, I think that because of the deficiencies with the personnel, with the front office, with the general manager, the poor drafts, there were a lot of excuses that could have been made for Brian Daboll. I supported him all the way through and through, all the way up until this moment, this morning or this afternoon when he got fired. I still think Brian Daboll is a capable coordinator in this league, but being a head coach is definitely a different task at hand for sure. Let me just kind of scroll down here and catch up. I do think we got a couple of more super chats that came in here one time. We'll address those, and then we'll get off into the Giant overreactions here. Let's see. We got one from Talking Eco. Big shout out my dog Talking Eco, another one of our biggest supporters over here on Authentic in the Beard, coming in with the $4.99 super chat. He said, I really want a proven coach now, but the market is looking tough for one. I do like Mike McCarthy. McCarthy is a name we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks. Definitely, I'll say accomplished to an extent, considering the quarterbacks that he has had during his tenure as a head coach, especially emphasis on Green Bay, only coming away with the one Super Bowl there with that type of level of quarterback play is kind of interesting. But I liked Mike McCarthy, especially when we were on a head coach hunt in 2020 when we went out there and we got Joe Judge. My top candidate at the time was Mike McCarthy. I'd say a little bit has changed since then, not a lot. Mike McCarthy did win 12 games in 3 seasons with the Dallas Cowboys, but we all know the playoffs was definitely the biggest issue for Mike McCarthy and getting over that hump with Dak Prescott at the quarterback position. They just couldn't find ways to win games in the playoffs. But he's definitely going to be a guy that I'm going to consider going into 2026. We'll have to see where he is at in this particular moment in time in his career, if he even wants to get back in the NFL and wants to get back to coaching. Another name has been John Gruden that's been thrown around a lot, but I want to do the due diligence. Today won't be as focused on who's going to be next in line, because I do want to do the research before we come up here and talk about that. But today's going to be more about how we got here. But big shout out, Talking Eco. Appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic in the Beard. Shout out my dog, Mateo, in the building one time, coming in hot with the $5 super chat. He says, yo, you feel if Dart didn't get concussed, Daboll doesn't get fired? I think that's absolutely a big chunk of the reason why he got fired, and the way that he handled it. And, they pressed him out at the podium in a major way. Pat Leonard, Dan Duggan, Jordan Renan, literally all 3 of them almost back-to-back asking the exact same question about how things were handled when Jackson Dart dealt with that big hit on the play that obviously was the play where he got concussed, where he fumbled the ball. I think that's a big part of it. But if the Giants could have skated away with the victory, I do think that Brian Daboll likely would have still been the head coach currently right now. But, sometimes things happen for a reason. And I think that the leash was just getting a link too long week in and week out. And y'all know that I'm somebody that I don't come up here and call for head coaches' jobs or general managers' jobs. That's just something that I just don't feel comfortable doing. When it comes to a player's performance on the field, I think it is a little bit easier to judge. But when it comes to head coaches, there are just things that we don't know what's going on within those 4 walls over there in the New York Giants facility. So for me personally, I just try to reserve judgment as far as firing coaches. I don't encourage fans to not do that. You guys you have your free will to judge this coaching staff however you feel. But the news came out today, Brian Daboll fired, and the Giants have to find a way now to try to iron out some of these deficiencies at the head coaching position. And, for me, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with Joe Schoen making this particular hire. Just as much as I don't feel comfortable with John Mara doing that. And I know John Mara's dealing with cancer right now, and I'm not trying to throw shade his way or anything like that, but the results over the last couple of head coach hires just have not been there. And that's unfortunate for all of us as New York Giants fans, because we just can't get right. And, I really don't know where to necessarily point the finger. I know Giants fans woke up today, or even just at the end of the game yesterday, throughout the entirety of the afternoon into the evening, trying to find a way to point the finger at somebody, whether it be Brian Daboll, Shane Bowen, whether it be Joe Schoen, whether it be John Mara, whether it be even Jackson Dart. I've seen people pointing the finger at Jackson Dart in the comment section of the compilation of all of his throws and runs yesterday from the game against the Chicago Bears. So as a fan base, we are basically all over the place, and that is unfortunate. Today we're going to try to bring some rationale to the situation, speak about a couple of the issues that got Brian Daboll fired, and also just speak about this game in its entirety. And I did want to start this one off with a clip from Rex Ryan, who was speaking on the Get Up. And I encourage fans to at least understand this. When you throw shade at ESPN, I think we need to leave the Get Up out of that situation. I love what they're doing on that panel with Greenberg, with Rex Ryan, Alex Smith, and with Adam Schefter, a guy who breaks news regularly in the NFL, being on that panel as well. I think it's an extremely experienced panel, and it just seems like every Monday morning when I'm going through clips to try to figure out what to talk about on a Giant Overreaction, to Get Up consistently has high-quality content over there, and I like what they're doing over there. But this is Rex Ryan speaking on the New York Giants defense and another collapse by the New York Giants defense against the Chicago Bears.
To me, look, this defense is absolutely atrocious. It's a junior college defense, right? They give up, you got 10-point leads. I mean, Brian Daboll's a decent football coach.
Yeah.
You got a 10-point lead. You can't hold it. All your money's up in that front, and you ain't using them.
Yeah.
I mean, so you don't know what the hell you're doing. And that's what happens when they don't play as a unit. They have a bunch of good individuals on defense. It drives me crazy. There's no unit pride. There's no anything. Anybody that plays worth a darn on defense, it's all about the unit, not about the damn individual. And this team right here, you got the best defensive tackle in the league. You got Burns, one of the best edge guys in the league. You got all these damn guys, and I can't stand watching this group. I just laugh my butt off watching you blow another lead.
Now, typically on the Giant Overreaction, we take statements from either national media or from social media, and we put these statements on the screen. And if you were indeed thinking that it was an overreaction, we would encourage you to put an O in the chat to represent that you disagree with it. We would tell you to put a U in the chat if you agreed with the statement on the screen. And we would tell you to put a P in the chat if you needed a push and a little bit more time. But today I kind of wanted to more focus on the obvious type of things here, because I think that this is a stance from Rex Ryan that is not going to split the room today here. I think that most people are going to agree that this defense does look like a junior college defense. If I had to give any bit of a pushback, I would say that this looks like a junior varsity defense here underneath Shane Bowen. The Giants have allowed 75 points total in the fourth quarter in the last 4 games. They had 17 unanswered points in yesterday's game, and they got outscored 14-3 in the final quarter. Now, another epic fourth quarter collapse by the New York Giants, and this rush defense is where I want to start. The rush defense has been terrible. We've been talking about it all year long, and I've also been speaking on the archetype at the edge rusher with Brian Burns and with Kayvon Thibodeau, and how, yeah, that looks great when you're trying to pin your ears back and get after the quarterback. But the way that the personnel was set up by Joe Shane for the New York Giants in particular, it's not a defense that is going to be leading in games and being able to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And that's something that they did not think about when building this roster, which made me think that they were going to address the offensive side of the ball next year, and there was going to be a little bit more patience with this particular coaching staff. Now, the New York Giants are allowing 152.1 rushing yards per game. It's 31st in the NFL. They're allowing 5.5 yards per carry, which is dead last in the NFL. And on the road, it's even worse. On the road, the New York Giants are allowing 172 rushing yards per game. That's also dead last in the NFL. Over the last 3 games, the Giants are allowing 202 rushing yards per game. Surprisingly, it's not last. The Cincinnati Bengals are averaging, I want to say, allowing teams to rush for 220 rushing yards per game in the last 3 games. But let's not take away from what we need to be speaking on here, which is the New York Giants. New York right now, when you talk about how they are approaching stopping the run, they don't have the bodies. And I'll continue to say that this personnel coming into the year, again, 2 years in a row, we fell for the bait. Overrated from a personnel standpoint. When we looked at last year with Dexter Lawrence, bringing in Brian Burns, having Kayvon Thibodeau on this roster, this team was looked at as a defense that was going to be top 10 going into last year. Basically, all they did this year was add a couple of rookies to the equation. Now, Abdul Carter is absolutely looking like a guy that could be a generational talent. But even still, did they expect just adding one more rookie to take this defense that was terrible against the run last year and make it that much better? Yeah, we added guys like Chauncey Golston from the Dallas Cowboys, but he's been injured for the majority of this season. We also drafted Darius Alexander in the 3rd round of the 2025 NFL draft, but he has not really hit the ground running as expected. So the top 5 to jump from top 10 last year to now jumping to top 5 this year, to me, that was an egregious mistake on most of our parts. I was a person that was sitting back saying, basically, I want to see the Kool-Aid stirred and mixed before I start drinking the Kool-Aid. But I did not even think that this New York Giants rush defense was going to be as bad as it was this year. And you look at how they approached going into this game against the Chicago Bears. Chicago came into this game on fire as far as how they rushed the ball. This is the number 2 rushing attack in the NFL coming into this game. And coming into Week 10, they were top 10 in rush play percentage, top 10 in yards per carry, top 10 in rushing attempts per game, top 10 in rushing yards per game. The Bears leave this game against the New York Giants with 171 rushing yards on the ground. DeAndre Swift averaged 6.2 yards per carry during the entirety of the game. The Bears running backs averaged 6.2 yards per carry at the half. And they could have ran the ball even more. I don't know about how you guys felt watching this game live, but for me watching it live, I felt like the Chicago Bears were getting away from the run, especially in the first half, which allowed the New York Giants to kind of hang around. And not only hang around, it allowed the New York Giants to have the lead at the half, even though they were outplayed for the majority of that first half. Now, Caleb Williams added 63 rushing yards on the ground, and he had a rushing touchdown that really was the difference in this game at the end of this game. And Caleb Williams' performance in this game was a big reason why the Bears won this game. Down the stretch, this year in particular, Caleb Williams has been incredible down the stretch. This is a quarterback that a lot of people gave up on last year because he was getting sacked way too much. You bring in a new offensive-minded head coach in Ben Johnson, and they're starting to find ways to iron out some of these deficiencies within his game. Caleb Williams, the number one knock on him last year was how many times he got sacked. I think he was the most sacked quarterback in the entire NFL last year. I want to say it was in the 60 range. And this year, it's a polar opposite in the results as far as how much he is getting sacked. He finished the day 20 of 36 for 220 yards, 1 touchdown through the air, 1 touchdown on the ground, no interceptions, which was most important. He did not turn the ball over at all in this game, and his QBR was 71.7. We've been talking about on this channel a ton that the New York Giants need to find a way to be able to turn all these pressures into sacks, because pressures is a nice statistic, but when you're not actually getting to the quarterback and getting him on the ground, then it's all for nothing. In this game, 12 pressures on Caleb Williams, a donut for the New York Giants as far as sacks. And every time they did get a sack in this game, they had a penalty on the back half of the defense or a penalty somewhere on the defense that would nullify the sack that they got. Abdul Carter got his first sack in this game, which was nullified by a penalty, and Dexter Lawrence got his first full sack of the day or of the season as well, and that was nullified by a penalty. And one thing I don't like to see, I know Dexter Lawrence is out here and he wants to do that dance as much as he can possibly do that dance, but when you get your first true full sack of the season, you're all eager to do a dance. It's not the kind of stuff that I want to see from a front-running leader on our team. But I will say this about Dexter Lawrence. After the game, when he spoke to the press, I liked what he said as far as the media asking him about the head coaches being fired week in and week out. He said, we don't care about that stuff. We don't care about the noise that's happening outside of this organization. We got to go out there and get the results. And that is a big boy type of answer. A stark difference from what we heard from Dexter Lawrence a week ago when he was rolling his eyes at the media. But the Giants are just not getting to the quarterback. They're getting after the quarterback, but they're not getting to the quarterback. And in particular, in this game, they pressured Caleb Williams on 29.3% of his dropbacks. That was 19th most in Week 10. That's not good enough. When you're talking about 4 first-round draft picks spent on the front 4 of the New York Giants, one of them we had to get via trade. You have to get better results out of that front. That front 4 should be the front-running unit for the New York Giants. And I love what Rex Ryan said in that clip about this team being too much about the individuals and not being about the particular unit. There is no responsibility right now. There's no accountability, more importantly, from this unit that is not living up to all of the hype. Now, they're not responsible for generating the hype, but you put that many big names on a defensive front, I expect there to be much more in the results column when we're talking about the New York Giants pass rush, and unfortunately, we're not getting that. And I think the biggest gripe that I have is, like, not only are you not stopping the run, but you're not even doing what you're supposed to do best, which is put quarterbacks on their back. And in return, the New York Giants are losing games, and they're losing games on the behalf of this defense. It's unexplainable, in my opinion, why the results of the New York Giants rush defense, and more importantly, their total defense is just as pathetic as they have been over the past couple of weeks here in the 2025 season. You got back Javon Holland in this game, and I thought that helped a minuscule amount as far as how much they were able to approach stopping the run. But when you got liabilities out there on the back half of this defense, like Deonte Banks, like Tyler Nubin, like Andrew Phillips, who's just, his play has just been so inconsistent throughout the season. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see the 4th and 2 conversion from the Chicago Bears where Cordero Flott literally takes out Flanagan fouls on a play where it was dead to rights right there. It was going to be a stop. And we have our own DB tackling our inside linebacker, who is now the 3rd guy in line because the New York Giants have no depth at that linebacker position on the inside, and they have no bodies there. But when your guy is actually out there playing, giving maximum effort on the day too, Flanagan Fowles was out there making some plays. You have your cornerback 1 at the particular moment in time going out there and tackling your inside linebacker. It has just been a complete failure on all fronts. And I don't even got to take a peek at the chat. I know you guys are in agreement with not only the Rex Ryan stance on this, but just the overall temperature of the New York Giants defense. It is a failure in all departments. And I haven't even spoke on the special teams that has been a complete debacle this year as well. And they can't find a way to field a good kicker. They can't find a way to get a guy that can get kickoffs. They can't find a way to have a consistent kickoff returner. We got our punt returner out there trying to play the role of wide receiver 2. And I have to literally hear the people who go up on Giants.com, on Giants YouTube, speak about a play from a punt returner in Gunnar Olszewski being one of the plays of the game, where he stops an interception. That's how pathetic we are right now as New York Giants. And today is not a good day to be a New York Giants fan. The last 4 weeks have not been a good day to be a New York Giants fan. But today in particular, it's been gut-wrenching. It's been so difficult to come up here and talk about this team because there's just so many deficiencies across the board. You almost cannot point to one department that is doing well outside of the quarterback position. And that points more to organizational failure, which a lot of people have had mixed opinions about when it's in regards to the New York Giants, right? Some people say it's the organization. Some people say it's the general manager in the front office, whether it was Joe Schoen or whether it was Dave Gettleman. And some people just think that it's just poor players out there on the field. But in my opinion, it's all of those things combined, which then will ultimately lead to organizational failure. And I see a lot of yous in the chat. I see a lot of responses in the chat. And let's tap in with a few before we move on to the offense here real quick. But I just, like I said, I know where you guys stand on this one for sure. Heck, your boys in the building says good players do nothing but lose. Let's see how good they are when the Three Stooges are gone. That's how we'll get the definitive results about the personnel on this team. But I think when you look at the offensive side of the ball, there is no debate. The Giants lack personnel on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, you could argue that the injuries piling up hurt, what otherwise may have been a solid unit. But look at the front. The defensive front is the one unit that basically has dealt with zero injuries throughout the entirety of the season. Chauncey Golston is the only guy that is the exception to that statement there. But outside of that, everybody's been healthy. Why are they not getting better results? Your guess is as good as mine. Jark12 says this is one of the best defenses in the league with a guy like Rob Salah. That's a hypothetical statement that I'm not confident in agreeing with. I got to keep it real with you because when you look at the Giants' number one deficiency on their defense, it is stopping the run. We cannot blame one inside linebacker being injured as the reason why the Giants can't stop the run because, look, last year when Michael McFadden was healthy, the Giants couldn't stop the run. In 2022, I know guys like Abdul Carter and Brian Burns weren't here, but we couldn't stop the run with Wink Martindale here either. So I can't confidently agree with this statement, but I do want to get to see if when we do get the right defensive coordinator in here, if that can possibly change some of these results here as far as how the New York Giants are approaching the defensive side of the ball. Shout out Stacy in the building. Stacy said the defense hasn't been aggressive because we don't have the personnel to be aggressive. Linebackers that can't run sideline to sideline. We don't even have cornerbacks that can cover. This is one I can agree a lot more with because, in my opinion, the defense just does not have the dogs. What did we talk about last week? We talked about trying to bring in more traditional build defensive ends to try to stop the run so that when you're in, obvious rushing down situations, you have a big body on that defensive front that can help stop the run. We all know Dexter Lawrence is going to get double teamed. It's really up to the other guys up front to be able to try to stop the run. And then if those guys up front can't stop the run, then you need your second level to be able to step up. And I got to agree with Stacy on this. We don't have linebackers that go sideline to sideline. And when Darius Muasawa was out there, filling in for Micah McFadden, it was some of the worst inside linebacker play that I've ever seen. But that's not Darius Muasawa's fault. That's Joe Schoen's fault for not having a secondary option when your first guy goes down and you don't have depth behind him. But 1,000% agree with Stacy on this one with the sideline to sideline linebackers. We don't have that. Hyphen Wade says, I appreciate that answer from him, but the reality is the morale is off kilter. You can see guys are frustrated and want better from this team as well as the coaching staff. Two things got to go together. From what I'm seeing, I took a quick gander at the All-22, and I'm going to show you guys a play on the opposite side of the ball that absolutely points to what I'm about to say here. The Giants lack effort, y'all. I highlighted it last week with Tyler Nubin showing you all of his runs against outside run. There's no way you can tell me that Tyler Nubin was giving maximum effort last week. This week, I haven't had a chance to zero in on solely his play, but I am going to do that when this stream is done. But offensively, when I show you this play from the offensive side of the ball in a little bit here, you will understand that these guys lack effort. Now, is that a trickle-down effect from the coaching staff or from the coaching staff? I'm not 100% sure, but listen, I don't have the luxury of being paid millions of dollars to go out there and play in the NFL, but I can damn sure tell you this. But this could also be, being on the perspective of not being in the NFL and wanting that opportunity. And I know what that's like, at least in my professional field. I got people that tell me when I turn down a session from so-and-so big-name artist, oh, bro, you tripping. but they don't walk in my shoes, right? And I don't walk in the cleats of these NFL players. But if I was out there on the NFL field, it would not matter, at least from my perspective, of, who's coaching me or what's going on in the front office or what's going on in the locker room or if the guys next to me aren't giving maximum effort. I'd be out there giving my 110% on every fucking play. But that is speaking from a guy that does not have the luxury of being in the position of these guys that play football professionally in the NFL. Bless Up KG said, Belichick, maybe. He and his girlfriend? Hell nah. Now, listen, a lot of people have been talking about Belichick. I'm not going to say no to Bill Belichick, but I do think that the stint that is happening currently with the North Carolina Tar Heels is not helping the situation as far as being able to judge Bill Belichick properly on his NFL resume. I will say that. Deaton says that play had me furious. Yeah, a lot of plays had me furious in this game. Jaji05 said, watching these games in total, the defense lacks fundamentals, missing tackles, no gap discipline, no gap integrity, bad angles, no eye discipline. That's another great one right there. He said at this point, you're coaching it to happen or allowing it. I don't know about the end of that. That's the part that I truly don't know. Right? I don't know what's going on in these practices with Shane Bowen. If there's an extra emphasis on all of these great details you listed here, Ja, on fundamentals, missing tackles, man, that kind of stuff is unacceptable. And especially when you play for the New York Giants. But even just on the NFL level, you don't see a lot of guys missing tackles that much. With the New York Giants, it's becoming a reoccurring theme. Shout out to Real People in the building. He said, Rex is speaking facts. I do agree. Excuse me. Jart said, Deonte Banks, Andrew Phillips, Tyler Nubin, all players that should have never been considered a liability, yet here we are, and it has to do with the coaching. Deonte Banks, this is for my day ones out there, and you'll remember this if you were truly a day one here. If you've been to like all of these streams over the past couple of years, Deonte Banks' rookie season, there was one thing that was extremely alarming to me. And at that particular moment in time in 2022, I didn't look at a lot of all 22 on the defensive side of the ball, and I still favor the offensive side of the ball. I'm just enamored with quarterback and wide receiver play, and that's a fault of my own. But in 2022, or 2023, sorry about that, when we drafted Deonte Banks and he was a rookie, and everybody was like, yo, Deonte Banks is going to be a cornerback one, yada, yada, yada. When Emmanuel Forbes was released the following season by the Washington Commanders, I came up here and I said, there's something interesting. When you look at the PFF numbers from both of those players I just listed, Deonte Banks and Emmanuel Forbes from their rookie season, both of those guys were drafted in the same draft, I believe. Both of them were first-round picks. When you look at the PFF grades, and this was so alarming to me back then, and y'all know I'm pro Deonte Banks because I'm a Maryland Terp through and through. But Emmanuel Forbes was ranked 169th out of all cornerbacks in the NFL that season as far as his PFF grade goes. Deonte Banks was ranked 163rd. And I told Giants fans, I said, pump the brakes. There's got to be some validity to this because I'm not sitting up there looking at every Deonte Banks snap for snap for snap. I don't have the time to do that. But the PFF people that make those grades, whether we agree with their assessment on the play or not, they are still going through every play. That was always an alarming ranking for me. And then we got into the next season and Deonte Banks underneath a new defensive coordinator completely took a nosedive. Like I said, man, I don't know. I don't know if Deonte Banks is just not a good player or if the way that they're coaching him has him out there being a liability. But I see Deonte Banks in man-to-man situations where it's just him and a wide receiver on an island. Where does the coaching come into play on that? It's you mano-a-mano versus a guy. You should be able to make the stop. And it seems all too often Deonte Banks, who was known to be a little bit grabby in college as well, is getting called for pass interference calls, and we saw that in this game. We're going to get into a breakdown here in a little bit, but I did want to tap into the chat here just for a little bit before we move on to the next topic. Jart, I just don't know. I truly don't know. Like, Andrew Phillips is a guy that flashes great plays every now and again, and then flashes he's a terrible player. Tyler Nubin, I would remove him from the conversation here with Deonte Banks and Andrew Phillips. I think Tyler Nubin is just a bad player at this point in time. The Boys 91 says, I was getting ready to mention special teams too. Scratching my head, freaking sorry. Our special teams is absolute, just straight up trash. And I don't even like to say that much, but that's what they are. JDJ's in the building said Flott thought that Fouls was Okereke and was trying to get revenge. Yeah, I if that was the excuse, I would accept that because Bobby Okereke literally knocked out what's my guy? Cordero Flott in the last game. So definitely some validity to that. Word says he agrees with the statement on the screen. Hyphen Wade also said these guys were hyped up to us by media, players, personnel, and fans alike just for this to happen. I'm telling you, these two things are out of sync and they need to fix it fast. This happens a lot in the NFL. You see people on ESPN, FS1, not as of late because they revamped their whole content strategy, basically fired everybody except Colin Cowherd. But you see this across the national media. They go into a season hyping shit up heavy. And then when those results don't pan out the way that they didn't envision them panning out, it's straight crickets. They're not going to talk about it, but content creators of those particular teams are going to have to come up here and have to explain why things are not working out the way that they should have been. Basile Boyd says it's actually a good day. In some regards, it is. And, you know, that perspective is going to speak volumes to how people view this because for me, I look at this as it is a low point for the New York Giants. And that's not a good day for me because I've been up here now for 7 seasons. And after the first season, it was a low point. And then we went 2 seasons with the next coach, and it was another low point. We can't keep doing this. And I'm getting sick and tired of it, man. It's like every couple of years we're firing a head coach. We're bringing in a new coach. We're bringing in a new general manager. There's no way you're going to be able to sustain the victories if that is the case there. You know, you constantly having to bring in a new coach every other year. Ben Harris says the defense has been good through 3 quarters for a ton of games. They are situationally not good. And do agree with you on that, situationally being the 4th quarter. Holmes with Jay says, we need a culture change. Gruden is the guy for the motherfucking job. I'm low-key tight that Daboll got fired. You know, there's a part of me that feels like Daboll is kind of being scapegoated here a little bit by Joe Schoen. And, yeah, Daboll was not getting the results from his team as a head coach, but, you know, he got his quarterback, and you could tell that there was a discrepancy in the front office with the coaching staff because when it came down time for the draft night, it's obvious that Joe Schoen wanted Shedeur Sanders, and it's even more obvious that Brian Daboll wanted Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart was his guy. He got his, you know, wish to draft Jackson Dart, but also they started Russell Wilson week 1 of the season, and you could tell that Brian Daboll was the guy that was, emphasizing that he wanted to bring in Jackson Dart as the starter, and when he did finally get his wish to start Jackson Dart, he went up to the podium and told you guys 3 times in one press conference, it was my decision to start Jackson Dart. So to me, it kind of speaks that, hey, you know, the general manager basically sacrificed his head coach to keep his job, at least for the time being. At least time being. Emphasizing on time being. Mason says, just got in the building. Authentic, what up? The rebuild starts now, which is a crazy statement right now, right? Ain't that crazy? Like, we're about to reboot the rebuild again. I'm floored. I truly cannot believe it, but it's basically facts. I thought that this was year 1 of the rebuild. Les2K6 says, why can't we stop the run up the middle if we allegedly have the best defensive tackle in the league? That's bars right there. Think about all the Dexter Lawrence highlights through the year that you can envision in your mind and think about how many of them come stopping the run. It's a lot more about how he gets after the quarterback. It's a lot more about how he wrecks offensive lines from an interior portion and gets after the quarterback. It's unfortunate. I think that we're overlooking something with the Dexter Lawrence situation because how can we not? We should be able to put 3 Jags around Dexter Lawrence and still be able to stop the run at least a decent clip. Doesn't make any sense. Deaton says facts. Bobby Okereke looks old. Authentic in the beard. This is my dog, the beard, in the building one time. He says, breaking news, more NFC East shakeups. Dan Quinn taking over as the defensive coordinator, at least for the duties for the Washington Commanders. Listen, I was talking with Mike Swan yesterday, Beard, and he was telling me, somebody's got to get fired for the way that, who was it? I believe it was Javon Kinlaw reacted in the end zone on that play where he just basically threw a punch at Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I was like, well, who you going to fire? Looks like the defensive coordinator and Joe Witt. That was the guy that I suggested. I was like, you going to fire Joe Witt? And he was like, I don't know, man, but I just feel like somebody needs to get fired. Doesn't look like Joe Witt got fired, but Dan Quinn taking over as far as calling the defense for the Washington Commanders. Shout out to the beard for the breaking news. The Washington coordinators is crazy, yo. Shout out my dog Frozone Tone in the building. He said, it's Frozone Tone from BR. I was at the game. The only thing we can do now is be positive with Dart, Scat, and Leak, and hopefully another wide receiver next year with the new coach. Daboll gone is a start. I hope that Daboll being gone is a start for the New York Giants getting in the right direction. If this shit gets worse, y'all know I contemplated almost turning this channel into an NFL channel recently because the New York Giants were that bad. They were that bad. But I'm going to remain patient. I'm going to stick with y'all through and through. You know what it is. Big shout out my dog, Frozone Tone, man, representing for my dogs over there on the Bleacher Report side of things one time. Let me see. This is my dog Ayo in the building one time. Ayo said the Giants need to start drafting well on defense and offense or else the new coach will run into the same issues. Absolutely. I mean, we went over the last two drafts on the last Giant overreaction. They're terrible. They're terrible. And you still got Giants fans going out here saying Joe Schoen has done a great job in the last two drafts when the results are not panning out the way that it felt on draft night. Very interesting. Shout out Joseph Merlino, 8728. He said Cliff Kingsbury would be a good look or Steve Spags. So Cliff, I think, has the same issue as Brian Daboll does. Great offensive coordinators, or at least good offensive coordinators, but when it comes to head coaching, the results are very different. Don't know if he would be a great candidate. He does look good over there with the Washington Commanders. Spags, had his opportunity with the New York Giants. I don't know if they'll bring him back. It's interesting. Spags is another one that could be, suffering from the same thing, like a good defensive coordinator and not necessarily a good coach. But his one stint was only as an interim head coach, so that's a very small sample size to really judge him off of. But their names, I'm going to consider them all as we do a deep dive and do some research on who we should bring in as the next head coach for the New York Giants. Let's see. Josh said, say what you want about Dex. He still commands a double team almost every play. That immediately puts the defense in a numbers advantage, yet the defense still looks this bad, especially versus the run. Good point. Bless up KG is in the building. What's going on, KG? Said, Cliff ain't a head coach. He's Daboll 2.0, good coach and coordinator, but can't run the whole team. That's how I feel about it, too. I think a lot of people who have who are just familiar with Cliff Kingsbury understand that. And late in seasons, man, that dude has had epic collapses dating back to his college days as well when he was at Texas Tech. And he just knows how to collapse late when it gets cold out there. And I just don't like the philosophy behind his offense either. The Washington Commanders right now have been in the shotgun for 95% of their offensive snaps. And I don't really want to see that with the New York Giants. Shout out Adrian B one time. Adrian B said, I don't even think B, it's safe to drink and watch Giants games at this time. LOL. I can only imagine the shit people say and do watching these collapses. Yeah, I'm normally by myself right here in the studio watching these games, man. It would be embarrassing if I was out in public watching these games around other NFL fans because these debacles and late game collapses, even though I don't have high expectations for the New York Giants, when it keeps happening week in and week out, man, there's just only one way to feel when you leave Sundays, and that's feeling absolutely fucking terrible. Let's see. Welvin is in the building. What's going on, Welvin? It's been a minute, bro. Welvin said Daboll told Schoen to draft Neighbors and Dart. His free agency is all right, but as a general manager, you need to draft well. Dude had missed on basically every pick outside of the top 6 in the draft. Great point, man. Great point. There is footage of Brian Daboll saying that it would be either Malik or Brock Bowers, that he had got the word from Nick Saban. And we all know about Jackson Dart. It's a great point right there. Great point. All right, let me see. Independent Outsider did drop another super chat. I think we got 2 more, actually. Big shout out to Dave Denton one time in the building with the 199 super chat. He says you have to look at head coach candidates with relation with Joe Schoen. It's possible. It's possible. I'm going to wait till we get to the end of the season to at least factor that part in. It's not fun coming up here every week talking about firing the head coach and talking about bringing in new head coaches. It's not fun. So I will it's not going to happen during the season, so I'm probably not going to talk about it much until we get to the end of the year. But big shout out to Dave Denton, man. Appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic in the Beard. We got another one from Luis one time. Shout out my dog Luis R in the building one time. He said Schoen is the biggest problem in my opinion. We are screwed. Don't fault you for thinking that way, my dog. I do not fault you for thinking that way because, if I had to choose between Brian Daboll as a head coach and Joe Schoen as a general manager, who is worse, I would have probably said Joe Schoen has been worse at his job. So agree with you there. Shout out to both of y'all for helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic and the Beard. And big shout out to Joseph Winograd as well for helping us raise the bar with the $5 super chat. He said, last night as I watched yet another unacceptable collapse, I agree with this firing. I told some of my Giants friends it's time. And I'm right there with you. As I went up on Bleacher Report yesterday immediately after the game, it's almost like my resilience was broken. It was literally broken because Brian Daboll should have won that game. And if you don't have a defensive coordinator out there that can put your defense in position to hold on to a 10-point lead after your quarterback goes out of the game with a concussion, then that's on you as a head coach. And it was the first time yesterday that I went up after a game with the New York Giants and I said straight up, yeah, he should have been fired. This is the game where if you're saying he should be fired, he should be fired. There's no way you can collapse after these 4 debacles all in a row and expect to have your job on Monday morning. And again, that was why I waited to go live today for this particular Giant overreaction, because I just had a gut feeling that he was going to be fired. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Quota says, how did Daboll get fired before Bowen? Eagles are just going to hire Daboll as their offensive coordinator since they need one and just win again. Yo, dog. That would give me a brain aneurysm, bro. If Brian, because this is great thinking by you, Quota, by the way. This is very forward thinking. The Philadelphia Eagles have had a different offensive coordinator every year for Jalen Hurts. No excuses being made over there. If you brought in a guy like Brian Daboll to be the offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts, who he already has experience calling plays for at Alabama, I have to take a screenshot of this. If this comes to fruition, holy shit, man. I'm at a loss for words after that one. I'm at a loss for words after that. That's great thinking, Quota. And I was scrolling down. I was about to kind of get on to the next topic. And when I see a paragraph, I kind of just, it kind of just makes me focus in a little bit more. Damn, bro. That leaves me speechless right there. If that happens, oh my God, bro. That would just be crazy. That would be crazy. Oh my God, that would be absolutely crazy. Shout out to Jalen3088 says, can we please force the next head coach to keep Carmen Brasillo on the staff? Dude has made some great improvements to the offensive line. I mean, I think it would be a pretty decent, idea, but I think the biggest improvement to the offensive line was bringing in Jackson Dart at the quarterback position. I really think that just, aided that offensive line in a major way. As I always say, a decisive quarterback is an offensive lineman's best friend. We didn't get that from Russell Wilson this year. And also you saw when Russell Wilson came into the game how different that offensive line looked. They are better. I think Carmen Brasillo's doing a pretty decent job. But as we bring in a new coach, I would hate to, attach anything to the hip for the new head coach and his staff. Do what you got to do. That was a big reason why we didn't get Denard Wilson as our defensive coordinator this particular season, because they didn't allow Denard Wilson to bring in his own staff. So definitely unfortunate. Ali G says, I'm calling it now. Daboll is going to get an offensive coordinator job very fast. Yes, he was the first head coach that got axed, but deep down, I do not think he was the main problem. Yeah, I don't think so either. You just look back at the seasons, right? Completely overachieved his first season here with the Giants with the 9 wins, playoff win, berth, all of that stuff. You come back next year, Daniel Jones gets hurt. He finds a way to win 4 of his last 7 games. The Giants win 6 games with Tommy DeVito and scraps at quarterback. To me, Brian Daboll was still on my good side at that point. And then you get to 2024, and the wheels fall off the fucking bus. He was absolutely terrible in 2024, and then that trickled into this season. He got his way by starting his quarterback. We had a little bit of a spark where Jackson Dart and Brian Daboll won 2 of the next 3 games, and then now you just get this 4-game collapse here. But I do agree with you. I agree with you, Ali. Sean Jackson in the building said, what up, Authentic? I thank Dabes for the thrilling 2022 season and playoff victory over the Vikings in that season. Also got to thank Dabes for likely identifying our young franchise quarterback. Too many L's, though. This is a good way to conclude the whole Brian Daboll era. I think you really, hit the nail on the head there. Brownie says, how Mara thinks this roster is good enough to keep Shane blows my mind. Yeah, and that's what they said. Those are the reports coming out of New York, is that, they felt that there was a disconnect with the results and with the personnel that they have out there on the field. It's really unfortunate. But I do want to talk about a couple other little topics here One other giant overreaction that we can kind of kill two birds with one stone by talking about the Jackson Dart concussion, as well as talking about one of the overreactions. But the other thing I want to talk about is just the help around the quarterback, and in this game, I thought that there was a little bit more help regarding, the surroundings around Jackson Dart in this game. Tyrone Tracy, I thought helped the running game in the second half in a major way. He had gone 14 straight games without breaching 60 yards. He finally got that streak off of his shoulder there, and the dark cloud around Tyrone Tracy is finally gone. He had 14 carries for 71 yards in this game. Getting back to his normal ways, averaging 5.1 yards per carry in this game. And it's kind of interesting because he had 0 yards on 5 rushing attempts at the half. And, the only thing that I would criticize about Tyrone Tracy's game is that we just need a little bit more consistency. And that would be criticizing Tyrone Tracy and the offensive line as one rushing unit, to be honest. The Giants had just 2 rushing yards from the running backs at the half. That's no way to be supporting your quarterback. And the crazy part about it is that the Giants still had the lead 10-7 going into the locker room at the half. So that goes to show you how much work our rookie quarterback is putting out there. Slayton came alive as well in the first quarter. He had the 31-yard reception that really sparked the offense. And then when the first quarter came to a conclusion on the first play of the second quarter, he had a 38-yard reception. He was really responsible for that first drive where we ended up getting 7 points. He ended up with 4 receptions for 89 yards on just 4 targets. So he caught every one of his targets. That's been the theme with Darius Slayton, is when he is clicking and being a productive player for the New York Giants, seems that he lacks the targets, and that was the case in this game as well. Theo Johnson had nice back-to-back catches in the first half and was pretty consistent throughout the first half. 7 receptions for 75 yards on 8 targets, but 6 of his targets came in the first half, and 71 of his 75 yards came in the first half. So again, consistency. We need that stuff to trickle into the second half and be able to play even keeled throughout all quarters of the game. And that was definitely the difference in this game, was that the Giants offense was not consistent. And obviously when, Jackson Dart goes out of the game, the offense really had no answers. And the Giants had a window in this game to truly put the Chicago Bears away. And, in the past, I would say, especially during like the first 3 years of Daniel Jones, I used to always talk about the windows of opportunity. And there was always multiple windows in every game. In this game, there was just this one opportunity that really shut really fast on the New York Giants and was the big reason why I think we lost this game. It was 17-7. There was 9 minutes and 12 seconds left in the third quarter. The New York Giants defense forced the Bears to punt the ball. The Giants are getting the ball back with a chance to score a touchdown and go up by 17 points. With basically half the time left in the third quarter. It's 4th and 1. The New York Giants are at the 50-yard line. Daboll runs Dart on a naked boot. He goes for it on 4th down at the 50. So the aggressive temperament and aggressive nature. We get 10 yards on the ground on a design quarterback run by Jackson Dart. 4 plays later, Jackson Dart fumbles, and he ends up getting the concussion. The Bears get the ball back, and at the time, we all don't know that Jackson Dart has a concussion yet. But the Bears get the ball back. You get a huge explosive play from Colson Loveland. And then you get the big pass interference on Deonte Banks that set up the Bears basically on the inside the 5-yard line of the New York Giants. We get 2 stop run plays. On 3rd down, Deonte Banks makes a pretty decent play, stops Rome Odunze from making a play on a fade route. And we force the Chicago Bears to settle for a field goal. And notice this. A lot of people harped on Brian Daboll settling for the field goal after the fact. But nobody harps on the Chicago Bears settling for the field goal that cut their lead from 10-7, right? So the Chicago Bears now cut that lead. It's 17-10. Jackson Dart comes out for the first play that is ending. The third quarter is now winding down when we get the ball back. And Jackson Dart comes out for the first 2 plays, actually. And then by the time we get to the fourth quarter, I guess that was when the New York Giants medical staff and Brian Daboll, whoever it was, checked up on Jackson Dart and realized he was probably saying some crazy shit on the sidelines. And then we're like, this dude probably has a concussion. You need to take him in the blue tent. And then we get Russell Wilson, who comes into the game. Now, Russell Wilson comes into the game, gets a huge play from Devin Singletary. Like, monstrous little, I think it was a little screenplay or a little check down. Devin Singletary takes it up the sideline. Huge play. Sets up the New York Giants now in the red zone where they were 1 of 4 on the day, by the way. This is the first game with Jackson Dart where their red zone numbers really plummeted. Very terrible. Now, Giants are at the 1-yard line at this point, and it's 3rd down. And Russell Wilson basically drops back to pass. When I saw this on all 22 from the sideline cam, I thought he had Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm going to show you the play here in a second. I thought he had Wan'Dale Robinson open on the crosser. Looks like they ran like a mesh concept or some kind of crossing concept. When I get to see it again, I'll get to analyze it again. But then when you see the end zone camera, you realize that there's really not a nice lane for Russell Wilson to be able to make the throw. But in my opinion, Russell Wilson should have had a walk-in touchdown. Now, I want you guys to focus on this play, and I make it very, very, very easy for you guys to see it here. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said the New York Giants are lacking effort. I want you to focus in on the offensive line on this play. This truly should have been a walk-in touchdown, and Brian Daboll shouldn't even have had the decision to go for it on 4th down. And before we get to talking about that decision, take a look at the play here. I'm going to show you both angles. I'm going to show you the end zone cam, and I'm going to show you the sideline cam as well, and you be the judge of why this play was not a touchdown. That should be a walk-in touchdown. I truly want to know your stance on that. But I do think that most people are going to agree that that should have been a walk-in touchdown. And a lot of people are saying, why the fuck is Russell Wilson just lowering his shoulder, lowering his helmet, and just trying to run the ball into the end zone? And you can see it from the end zone cam there that he really does not have anybody open. I'd say Wan'Dale Robinson is probably the only viable option to maybe throw the ball. But that lack of effort from Jermaine Illuminor and from Greg Van Roten, in my opinion, that is a sign that I have seen from multiple players throughout. We've seen it from guys, and there are going to be plays where guys are tired. But in that particular play, these guys are standing there not even thinking, and maybe this is a coaching thing, not even thinking that there is an opportunity for Russell Wilson to even run the ball there, which is absolutely fucking crazy in my opinion on 3rd down. Now, Daboll ends up settling for the field goal on 4th down. The field goal goes through the uprights, but there was a penalty on the Chicago Bears for having 12 men on the field. So now from the 1-yard line, Daboll could have took the points off the board and gone for it from the half-yard line, which I do think in hindsight obviously would have been the right decision to make there. But if the players execute the way that the coach expects them to execute on 3rd down, I think it's a no-brainer. The Giants go up 24-10 on the scoreboard there, and they likely put the Chicago Bears away. In worst-case scenario, the Chicago Bears would end up scoring, 2 touchdowns to come back and then maybe have that opportunity to go for a 2-point conversion or send this game to overtime. But what really ended up happening is the Giants went up 20-10. Caleb Williams came down, answered on a huge run and a touchdown pass to Rome Odunze that cut the lead to 20-17 with 3:56 left in the game. And then the Giants ended up going 3 and out. Another thing that a lot of people are not focusing on at the end of this game, yeah, there was a collapse defensively. Yeah, your offense could not garnish or gain any yards to be able to sustain a drive, to be able to keep the defense off the field and possibly win that game. But after the New York Giants went 3 and out, Jamie Gillen literally shanked the fucking punt, and the Bears took over at the 50-yard line. That is why they were able to score extremely quickly with 3:56 left on the clock. Caleb Williams had the bootleg for a touchdown. Chicago went up 24-20, and the Bears ended up going on to win the game. Now, there are things that are in Brian Daboll's control, like 4th down and half a yard with everything on the line. Go for it. Why not, right? Why not go for it? That is in Brian Daboll's control. But Jermaine Illuminor and Greg Van Roten having absolutely pathetic effort on that play, Brian Daboll is not necessarily in control of that. And most importantly, Jamie Gillen shanking the punt, to me, that points the finger at Joe Schoen. We've seen this punter shank punts in critical situations multiple times. Even in this particular game, I don't know if you noticed it, but they revoked his kickoff duties because on the first kick from the game, he kicked the fucking ball out of bounds. And then Younghoe Koo had to come in and finish the duties for the rest of the game as far as kickoffs go. We all knew that Jamie Gillen and Graham Gano are players that should have been replaced. But instead, our general manager keeps wheeling these guys out there. And I don't know if Brian Daboll was in support of those players being on the roster as well. But all in all, it's just a complete debacle from the New York Giants. And I think that play speaks volumes as to how the effort is on the field. And I'm a guy that normally does not question effort. But effort is also the responsibility and the accountability of the players on the field. But also, if you're not getting those results or that particular effort from players on the field, then you got to put their asses on the bench. That's how I view it. I would much rather have a player that is going out there and giving maximum effort and failing while giving maximum effort than a player that has a better skill set out there that will not give us maximum effort. That's how I view it. Big shout out to my dog Cresley one time with the $4.99 super chat. He says, I can't take this shit. Mara, sell the team. We're keeping the worst general manager because of stability. Mara and Shane are clowns. I'm sick of this. 27 come soon. I feel you, brother. The frustration is definitely there. I'm frustrated as well. I think the most frustrating part for me is that with all of this happening right now within the New York Giants facility, we still got 7 games to go. This could get ugly really quick. Right now, the New York Giants are the worst team in the NFC. I think there's only one other team in the AFC that has a worse record. I think currently we have the number 3 overall selection in the draft in 2026. It's looking like we're headed towards another top 3 pick. I feel you, Cresley. I totally feel you, bro. Appreciate you helping us raise the bar, man, and supporting this channel over here. I want to scroll back a little bit, just tap in with the chat for a little bit, just kind of see the reaction to the play we just broke down, and then I want to talk about one more subject, and then we'll get y'all up out of here. Let's see. Let me see, we're at 3. Okay, so 3:39. Let's go back just a couple of minutes. We'll start here with Big Low. Big Low says that's disgusting, and I totally agree with you on that. Faye says he ran the wrong way, gaping hole on the right side. I disagree. There's a DB. I would show it to you again, but, I'll post a play on Twitter if you want to check it out. Listen, when you have 2 players that are just fucking standing there looking like mannequins, there is no right way, in my opinion. That play is not on Russell Wilson. I thought he took the right angle. You have 2 guys literally sandwiching one defender. He could have picked either way. If either one of those players was doing their job, then he obviously walks in for a touchdown. Tree Squirrel says, yeah, those guys are not even pushing that guy. Yeah, as soon as they realized that their player gave up on the play, that they were going, or they thought he gave up on the play, they gave up as well. That's a sign of weak-minded players, in my opinion. Big Low says Illuminor had a bad game. Yeah, he did. Hyphen Wade says he hesitated, and I think he was too focused on the past, or the pass is what I think he's saying there, and not the run. Plus that last minute let go on the block, egregious, but I can't really put that all on the guard. I'm putting it all on the guard. If your quarterback is dropping back to pass, there is no way that you should be standing there like this and like, is the play over? There's no way you should be doing that. That's my opinion on it. But I did want to see what you guys wanted or had to say about it, because I've been hearing people have different opinions going around on social media about that play. To me, the play of those 2 offensive linemen, which is the weakest side of our offensive line with Jermaine Illuminor and Greg Van Roten, to me, that's unacceptable. Genesis says, wow, that line just now was bad. Yeah, it was terrible, bro. Tree says, I want Bill. He won't take no shit, and even if we lose guys, we'll play hard and discipline. Genesis said the line. He corrected that. Faye says that's an OnlyFans level of gap, LOL. Man, dude, when I saw it live, I was like, what the fuck is Russell Wilson doing? And then I was like, I got to go back and look at this play, because, I posted a tweet that said, basically, this is an indictment on Brian Daboll and his coaching staff when you see Russell Wilson come into the game and they have no offense at all, because they don't know how to build an offense around a quarterback that is not a dual threat quarterback. And we've seen that countless times with all the other quarterbacks. Drew Lock struggled here. I don't look at Tommy DeVito as a dual threat type of quarterback, and he struggled as well. Even guys who had the dual threat capability, they struggled here as well, Tyrod Taylor and Daniel Jones. But you saw in yesterday's game, they did not have a separate offense for Russell Wilson like they did in the previous games to start the season, and in the previous games that we saw in the preseason. And in my opinion, that's unacceptable, that you bring in a guy like Russell Wilson and you expect him to run the same up-tempo offense that Jackson Dart has been running. You're not going to get results out of that, and you only had 3 men running. It was a 3-man route combination on that play. Just terrible. Simeon says Illuminor's head was in his ass the entire game. Yeah, man. Holmes says that effort is a big problem. Agreed, man. Agreed. Tree says, I don't know why we didn't run the ball 2 and 3 down from the 1-yard line. They did. They did run the ball. That the pass play that you saw right there is the only pass play from that sequence. I think that's correct. From when I went back and looked at the all 22 by category on Russell Wilson, that was the only passing play that was there during that red zone attempt. So I do think that they ran the ball on the other previous downs. Now, if you want to look back at when they went 3 and out on the drive when they got the ball back on that play, they did run 3 pass plays, but you could tell that there was an emphasis, at least relayed to Russell Wilson, that we're going to run some safe pass plays here because it'd be nice to get some first downs and extend the drive. But if nothing is there, make sure you stay in bounds and get down. And Russell Wilson on 2 of the 3 plays, one of them he took a sack. 2 of them he took a sack, actually. One of the plays that he took a sack, he ran to the sideline, and instead of going out of bounds, he just kind of took a knee and surrendered himself. Dave Hernandez said should have played Marcus Bowe if he wasn't 100%. Agree with you. Brownie says Jermaine standing straight up. It was, bro, like anybody that's ever played ball on any level, you know how pathetic of an effort that was there. Genesis said Belichick. Genesis been on that Belichick agenda heavy. I ain't mad at it. He says Belichick would be good, but I don't think he's leaving North Carolina. And then Dean said Belichick is a clown. I love the back and forths here. Tree said I want Belichick as well. People can say no, but I feel New England always had a great defense, and they needed a whole rebuild after Brady, and they just never found their quarterback. I can agree with that to an extent. We don't have results after the fact. So Jart says that 3 and out echoed the narrative of underpreparedness to me. Why can't we play football just because our starter went out with an injury? I don't know if it did. There was a bit of unpreparedness for sure because the offense, from that standpoint, you could tell that they did not plan on having Jackson Dart get injured. And, in turn, they had to have Russell Wilson out there trying to run the offense that those guys are comfortable running with Jackson Dart. So in that regard, I will say they were unprepared. But the whole narrative around Brian Daboll in this game about the coaching to lose type of thing, as I went back and rewatched some of the game and rewatched some of the all-22, I think Daboll was actually trying to coach this one to win the game, which is why he was running Jackson Dart late in the game as well. Tree said a clown with how many rings? More than fingers. I like that. Deedon said exactly authentic. Even if we didn't score, the Bears would have had 99.5 yards or 99.5 yards to go in order to score. Yeah, it's true. If you don't get it there, you're only up by 7 though, right? That's the dilemma because the Bears went on to score 14 points to win the game. So, I do agree with you here, Deedon, that I would have preferred to see them go 99.5 yards to get 7 rather than them having to score on 2 drives back to back. I mean, they're both egregious situations, though. Let's see. I'm going to skip all the Bill Belichick talk. I got to keep it real with y'all. Okay. We did get a super chat. Let's address that while we're looking at the rest of the chat and whatnot. Big shout out my dog B-Rog in the building one time, man. Our number one supporter the past couple of months here, B-Rog says all they had to do was push the defender into the end zone. That play is one of many bad ones on that day. Absolutely was. And B-Rog also said yesterday was one of the worst efforts I've seen by a handful of players in a long time. Yesterday was definitely a player performance problem attenuated by the season-long coaching woes. I think you worded that extremely well. And that's the part that I don't know, right, is the effort, the lack of effort, a reflection of the coaching staff? Like I said, I can only speak from a personal perspective where if that was me, the coaching staff got nothing to do with my effort. I'm going out there full blazing 100% speed, even if I'm going to get hurt, which is probably the outcome. Is I would probably get hurt out there. But I'm going to go out there and leave it out there on the field, man, especially if they're paying me millions of dollars. So totally agree with you on this one, B-Rog. This is facts right here, in my opinion, and almost cannot be debated. Appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic and the Beard. Dom says Ian Rappaport reports that Shane will be staying for the coaching search and remain the general manager. Yeah, a statement came out from the New York Giants, and that's basically what they've been saying as well. And that's kind of unfortunate. It's kind of unfortunate. Just kind of taking a gander here at the chat. Y'all be patient with me here. Just seeing if there are any other topics we might not have covered here before I get off into the next one. Bless Up is saying, for the life of me, I can't understand keeping Joe Shane. He has literally done nothing good. Anyone in this chat would have drafted Neighbors and Dart is Daboll's pick. Yeah, that's facts. Quota said, I want fans to temper their hype for next season or 2027 and to say, remember the hype from Wilson's bomb in preseason to where we are right now. Laughing my ass off. Yeah, dude. I don't even say that word. I can't call another man that word. I've been saying that all season long, but yeah, if he ever was, he definitely ain't it no more. Dean said, children are a reflection of their parents and players are a reflection of their coach. Simple. Ooh. Now, let me use my life as an example here. My brother coming up was a complete fuck up. Straight up. School, knucklehead, in and out of trouble with the police. My man went to a fucking, what are they called? You know, those a prison for youth, pretty much. Then he ended up in prison after the fact. Me, on the other hand, stark difference of me and my brother. We two totally different people coming up, and we had the exact same parents. In fact, my brother had a longer tenure with my father in the household. When I was 11 years old, my parents got divorced. My father stayed around in my life for a long time. I don't think that children are necessarily always a reflection of their parents, because my parents, my Haitian parents, they instilled fear in our hearts as to a reason why to not fuck up. And for some reason, that fear didn't trickle down to my brother. You know, for me, the fear was absolutely there. Like, I was not going to be, fucking up in school and being an embarrassment to my mother or my father. It just, I wasn't going to have it that way. Now, I wasn't like the perfect student or nothing like that. I was probably like a D, C average type of student. So I wasn't going out there getting straight A's and shit. But you didn't have to worry about me getting into problems with the police and shit like that. You know, I think to an extent, parents are responsible for how their children, are raised, for sure. But also sometimes, like, the environment that you put your children in when they're not with you is also important as well. But you can't, I don't think you can go either way. You can't say like 100% children are a reflection of their parents. And in this metaphor that we're presenting here, you can't say 100% that a team is a reflection of the coaching staff. You know, like, look at the Cleveland Browns underneath Bill Belichick, and then look at the New England Patriots underneath Bill Belichick. And I think all your answers will be right there for you. Let me see. Shout out my dog right here. Kared, I believe it is, says Bellinger was open on that field Russell Wilson touchdown run, but too late now. You know what? I'll look at it one more time, because I really thought that Wandale was the only one open. And we'll all take a look at it one more time. Why not? All right, let's pull it up real quick here, and let's see if Bellinger's open on this play, and let's see the lane that. Let's go one more time from that view. He's in motion. In the flat we're talking? Nah, man, I can't get that. I can't get that. I can't get that. Yeah, that's. I mean, open for a reception, but he's probably going to get tackled there. So that's a tough one, bro. That's definitely a tough one. But it is a super chat, man. Big shout out to you. Appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here. And Corette is a name I haven't seen too much in the chat, man. Appreciate you being vocal, but I don't know, man. It's third down, so you're not looking for just like a check down and a tackle. You did say Bellinger was open on that field Russell Wilson touchdown run, but too late now. I don't think Bellinger gets in on that play. That's, one man's opinion versus the other. Big shout out to SHU Carter, man. Sock passe mon cher with the $5 super chat in the building one time. He says, greatness will always elude us if we continue to do the fire coach, keep general manager process. Yeah, and that has been the theme, man. McAdoo got fired, kept Reese. Gettleman got fired. Oh, I'm sorry. Shermer got fired, kept Gettleman. Gettleman got fired. Who was it after that? Did we keep a head coach with Gettleman? We didn't. So, yeah, because we cleaned house, right? It was, let me see. Nah, Joe Judge got fired. Yeah, Joe Judge and what's the joker from Dallas? Why is this? His face is right there. His name is escaping me. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Offensive coordinator we brought in from Dallas. But, yeah, they were all fired, and we kept Gettleman. So, yeah, that does make sense. And we allowed Gettleman to actually kind of resign at the end, and now you're firing Brian Daboll and keeping Joe Shane. Jason Garrett, that was going to kill me. When I can't remember a name, boy, it makes me think about Stephen A. Smith, man. But yeah, I definitely appreciate you helping us raise the bar. And I agree with you, bro. The process, it has to change. I talked about it, man. I think they should have been a package deal. Fire one, fire both, keep one, keep both. But shout out SHU Carter helping us raise the bar over here. Shout out Noah Void with the $10 super chat one time. Says Joe Shane is fucking allergic to drafting or signing good inside linebackers. One of the top positions I wanted addressed in the offseason. If we want to hurt ownership, we, the fans, need to seriously boycott games. Listen, I would love for the fan base to do that, but I don't think they're going to do it. Every year, and I don't blame them, fans fall victim to it every fucking season. They think, oh, we got a clean slate. We're going to be winning this many games. As many times as I've heard, we're going to win 10, 11, 12 games this year, when really, the offseason does not really emphasize any encouraging of that. I don't know why fans think that, but fans are always going to have blind faith, and they're never going to boycott the games. And every October, every November, we're getting to this point here, and we see, the same exact results. Giants eliminated from the playoffs basically with an entire month to go. So I just don't think it's going to happen. And, my homegirl Arabia, she's a Commanders content creator doing her thing right now, putting her foot in this content game. She said a quote that's going to live with me literally forever. And it's just because I am a fanatic does not mean that I cannot be pragmatic. More fans need to abide by that, but they won't. And it's unfortunate, but can't tell people how to fan. That's one thing I don't do, man, but I encourage. A big shout out to Noel Void. We appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic in the Beard. Jart says, overreaction topic. Coaching and development was a bigger issue than Joe Shane's talent acquisition. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're pretty damn equal. They're pretty damn equal because, to me, the personnel brought in is not good, especially when you divide it up in two sides of the ball. Like, defensively, you could make a great argument that Joe Shane did a good job in the offseason and brought in talent where the team should have been at least been able to perform on the defensive side of the ball. But offensively, what Brian Daboll was doing with Jackson Dart and the amount of points they were scoring over the last 6-7 games, I thought he was doing a pretty good job offensively. But again, that's not the head coach's job. The head coach's job is to get results across the board. And, that he has not been getting those results. That's just what it is. The Illas in the building says, what do you think about Davis Webb, Authentic? Haven't thought about it much, man, to be honest. Kind of segued into a coach, coordinator vibe and whatnot. But I'll do some research, but haven't thought about Davis Webb since he left New York, to be honest. Sebastian's in the building says, if Banks, Hyatt, Neal go to other teams and have serviceable careers, that is on coaching. Yeah, it is. It definitely is. What is serviceable will be subjective, obviously. We did see Jalen Hyatt come out here in his rookie season and put up, 323 yards? That's off the top. I wonder if that number is exact, but I think he put up 300-something yards. So it'd have to be, Jalen Hyatt would have to turn into a wide receiver 2 for me to at least reconsider him just not being that good of a player. When I personally watch Jalen Hyatt's tape, it's not good. Evan Neal stunk, man. We'll see. Offensive linemen with more time, you never know. Consistency can definitely enter their game. Hyphen Wade said, I really think Bobby Okereke doesn't fit this scheme. McFadden is decent. He's just not the athletic linebacker that fits today's game like that. Yeah, I think McFadden's kind of average level linebacker. Bobby Okereke is getting up there in age. Antonio says, Caleb going to be good. I hope the Giants do exactly what the Bears did, bring in the best offensive coach or offensive coordinator and let him bring his guys in. If you look at the Bears staff, it's stacked. Yeah, I mean, Ben Johnson did a fantastic job. And look at the difference in their results of these games, right? Like, they're still in close games like they were last year. The difference is in the fourth quarter, the offensive-minded head coach is finding ways to put his quarterback in a better position to win those games now. And he's keeping them out of harm's way. And coaching is definitely a big difference. I mean, they went from dog shit coaching, though. I mean, Shane Waldron was over there calling plays. And then Matt Eberflus was the head coach over there. Both of those guys were terrible, just levels terrible, more terrible than Brian Daboll was. Dean says, please stop overrating these players. I'm with you, bro. Yeah, all these guys getting overrated. Like, they're not good, man. They're not good. Offensively, especially. Defensively, you got some guys, but, just because you got good players, and all of them individually are good players does not mean they will make for a good unit. And again, archetype. Focus on the archetype. Noel Voigt says, getting sick of guys getting old excuse. Look at dogs at that position who are older than Bobby Okereke, as in DeMarco Davis on the Saints. Yeah, I mean, Bobby Wagner's playing decent football. The age is not necessarily the reason why he's bad, but with age, his results are declining a little bit. You know, Bobby Okereke was never really a great linebacker. That's the other thing, too. Blessed KG said Shane's only great move was Brian Burns, and his buddy in Carolina gave him a discount, especially compared to what the Rams were willing to give up the year prior. Yeah, which reports said it was 2 first-round picks that they were willing to give up the year prior. So, you know, it definitely got a little bit of a hometown discount there for sure. But not a lot of good moves to add to that move with Brian Burns from Joe Shane. And I thought, you know, I was willing to give him a pass over the offseason and whatnot, and I thought he was stepping into the right direction with some of the moves he made. You know, he addressed things, but just because you address things does not mean that they are fixed. And he addressed the secondary, but he absolutely did not fix the secondary. And that's just, you know, either bad luck or bad process. It's hard to really gauge. Let's talk about Jackson Dart here a little bit, who did have a really good game here. Jackson Dart on the day, 19 of 29. He had 241 yards through the air, 0 passing touchdowns on the day, 0 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 91.3. He had 67 rushing yards. I believe that's his 5th game over 50 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns on the day, and he was only sacked 2 times. You know, that game yesterday was a big example of how quarterbacks can keep the sack numbers low, because I thought both quarterbacks did a really great job of getting out of harm's way, buying time with their legs, manipulating the pocket, and just finding ways to not take unnecessary sacks. Now, Jackson Dart, you know, a lot of people are talking about too many runs, and we're going to talk about that here on the next overreaction. He did leave the game in the 4th quarter with the concussion, but Jackson Dart continuously is adding these record-breaking milestones to his resume, and I think that is at least a little bit of proof as to us having our franchise quarterback. There are still a lot of people that have been arguing in the comment section of the compilation that we put out just yesterday, actually, you know, that Jackson Dart, you know, a lot of people are just overhyping him as well, which could possibly be the case. But I think that Jackson Dart has put out the results that show that he is the kind of quarterback that deserves to be built around. He's the first rookie quarterback in NFL history to have 4 consecutive games with a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Today, or this game yesterday, was Jackson Dart's 5th straight game with the rushing touchdown. 7 rushing touchdowns since becoming the starter for the New York Giants. That's first in the NFL. And Jackson Dart is the first rookie quarterback in NFL history with 1,400 passing yards, 300 rushing yards, and 15 total touchdowns through his first 7 career starts. Jackson Dart now, he has 17 total touchdowns. Remember the year in 2022 when everybody thought that Daniel Jones had this stellar season when we went to the playoffs and whatnot? That was 15 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing touchdowns. Jackson Dart through just, 8 games now or something like that? 7 games? Not even a full half of the season here. Already is knocking on the door of those numbers. He already has 10 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing touchdowns on the season. And that is going to take me to the next giant overreaction, which, you know, I thought about this one, you know, before Brian Daboll was fired, but I still think that a lot of the points I wanted to bring up about this particular overreaction are definitely still true, even though Brian Daboll is not the head coach here. But let's get off into this next and last giant overreaction before I get y'all up out of here. So this one came from Connor Hughes, and he wrote an entire article about this, actually. And the headline of his Twitter post that linked the article to the Twitter post said, "This was avoidable, but considering the Giants' defiant disregard for reining in Jackson Dart's recklessness, also inevitable." I'm going to break down some points on my stance on this, but if you think that this is an overreaction and you don't agree with the statement, you can put a O on the screen or an O in the chat. If you agree with this statement through and through, and you do think that the New York Giants' defiant disregard for reining in Jackson Dart's recklessness was a big reason for why he was injured in Sunday's game, you can put a U in the chat to represent that you agree with the statement and you're taking the under. There is no push here, y'all. This situation is basically over, and Brian Daboll was fired. But I'll do my best to try to break down why I think that this is indeed a major overreaction. And I do think that pressure from the media, from the beat reporters, and from the fan base has a large part to do with why Brian Daboll was fired today and Joe Schoen was not. Now, you can argue about how much Jackson Dart is being run, and you could have some validity to that. But through and through, this is a fact that the New York Giants tried to dial back the amount of rushing attempts for Jackson Dart, especially when you look at it from a designed run standpoint. Jackson Dart had 30 rushing attempts in his first 3 starts. He had 25 rushing attempts in his last 4 starts, okay? In my opinion, this is more of a Jackson Dart problem than it is a Brian Daboll turning Jackson Dart into a fullback, which I've seen multiple people say on social media throughout yesterday after the game and throughout this morning as well. Jackson Dart has breached 6 rushing attempts just one time in his last 4 games. He had 6 rushing attempts in yesterday's game, and granted, he was knocked out of the game at the end of the third quarter. So if you want to average it out, and look at it in the fourth quarter, you're basically looking at a quarterback that has about 1 design quarterback run and some change per quarter, okay? So he was on pace basically for about 5.3 design runs if he would have played through the entirety of the game. But he only had 4 design runs on this game or in this game. And I want you to look around the league and do your own research as well. I did mine. And just look at the rushing attempts by quarterbacks around the league. And also, if you have privy to a NFL Plus subscription, look at those particular rushing attempts for those quarterbacks on the tape. You look at Josh Allen. His rushing attempts have gone down each and every year since 2022. You look at Jalen Hurts, it's the exact same thing. His rushing attempts have gone down each and every year from 2022. In his first 4 games this season, Jalen Hurts was required to run the ball more than he probably wanted to because of the injuries surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles and the dire situation that they were in where they needed to win games. Jalen Hurts had 41 rushing attempts in his first 4 games this year. He has had just 19 rushing attempts in his last 4 games. But more importantly, Jalen Hurts has found a way to still be able to run the ball, but he does not run the ball as fearless as he once did. And if you pay attention to the Philadelphia Eagles games, look at how many times Jalen Hurts gives himself up as a runner this year, even dating back to last year. He dealt with an injury last year, and he dealt with an injury the year before that where his shoulder was giving him issues and he took a big hit on a design quarterback run. And now you're seeing guys like Jalen Hurts, guys like Josh Allen, who are at the top of the league as far as dual threat quarterbacks go, along with Lamar Jackson, who is dealing with an injury or just coming off of an injury and finally playing his first couple of games. All of those quarterbacks are finding ways to protect themselves more and more because with the transition of dual threat mobile quarterbacks running the ball more, you got to think, man, like when Michael Vick was out here running the ball the way that he was, there were not really any design quarterback runs in the NFL. You had quarterback draw, and that was basically it. That was the only way that Michael Vick would run on a design quarterback run. But you never saw Michael Vick running RPO or running read option or running QB power. That is something that has been implemented into the modern day of the NFL. But quarterbacks still need balance, right? It's not about how many times you run necessarily. It's about how you run. And when I think about how you run, I think about young quarterbacks making big mistakes. Jaden Daniels is at the top of this list for me. Jaden Daniels, in his last 4 games, I'm going to break down a bunch of quarterbacks in their last 4 games. Jaden Daniels in his last 4 games has more rushing attempts than any quarterback in the National Football League. He has ran the ball 36 times in his last 4 games. That's a lot of attempts. And a lot of those are designed runs. But Jaden Daniels is in that same ballpark of a quarterback as Jackson Dart. He's a quarterback that doesn't know when to give up on the play. You look at Drake May. Over the last 4 games, Drake May has just 6 less rushing attempts than Jaden Daniels. Drake May has 30 rushing attempts. I'm going to post this when we get off air on my Twitter page. I put together a compilation of some of the runs over the last 3 weeks of Drake May. He's running the ball very similarly to Jackson Dart. Very reckless When he needs it on third down, he goes and he gets it. It's just more fortunate for the New England Patriots that Drake May has not been injured while running the ball. And it's less fortunate for the New York Giants that when Jackson Dart is running the ball, he is getting injured. Some other quarterbacks that are running the ball a ton in their last 4 games, Justin Fields has 29, which is more than Jackson Dart. Drake May has 30, which is more than Jackson Dart. Jaden Daniels has 36, which is more than Jackson Dart. Lamar Jackson has 27, which is more than Jackson Dart. Those are the only quarterbacks that I found in a quick research that have more rushing attempts in their last 4 games than Jackson Dart. So there is a volume issue here too, because Jackson Dart is still running the ball more than necessary, but that is what his team is required to do because they don't have any offensive weapons on the side of the ball, and the only offensive weapons that they had are now injured. Now, Jackson Dart has ran the ball 26 times in the last 4 games. Caleb Williams, 20. These are some guys near that number. Patrick Mahomes, 19. But the 2 quarterbacks that stand out the most to me on this list are Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. Each of them, in their last 4 games, have ran the ball 19 times. To me, it's not necessarily just about the rushing attempts. It's not just about the design quarterback runs. Sometimes fucking around is the only way that a quarterback is going to find out. Tua is a good example of this because Tua is not a dual threat quarterback. He's a guy that doesn't even run the ball that much. And every time we've seen Tua basically get hurt, for the majority of the time, it's happening in the pocket. He had the one time where he did run the ball down the field, picked up like 20 yards, and ended up getting hurt in the middle of the field. It was one of the most devastating hits that he has taken in his career, and it was after coming back from a previous concussion. But Caleb Williams had more rushing attempts in this game than Jackson Dart did. And that was a big reason why the Chicago Bears won the game. Caleb Williams had 8 rushes for 63 yards. He had the 1 rushing touchdown. The 8 rushes was a season high in rushing attempts for Caleb Williams. Dart had just 6 carries in this game. In my opinion, this is not the game to point the finger at the amount of rushing attempts or the amount of designed quarterback runs. I heard Damian Woody go up on ESPN on the Get Up and say you can't keep running your quarterback this much and have this many designed runs. Well, there was a clear emphasis and effort from the coaching staff to not put Jackson Dart in harm's way. Even go back and look at the play where he ended up getting hurt on. He basically has the first down and trying to get a couple of extra yards. He loses the ball up in the air when C.J. Gardner-Johnson comes in and punches the ball out. And then in one swoop, and I don't blame Jackson Dart for this, the ball goes up in the air. He's getting tackled in one swoop, and he tries to grab the ball, takes a huge hit. His helmet gets slammed into the ground, and we're looking at our quarterback now in the concussion protocol and likely not going to play next week. There is truly no real difference in Caleb Williams and Jackson Dart, except Caleb Williams knows how to fucking slide, and he knows when to give up. And the other thing, Caleb Williams actually has help on the offensive side of the ball with a bunch of dogs. Jackson Dart does not have that luxury. Having talent does not necessarily mean that coaching is going to be able to fix that. We've seen countless players throughout the history of the NFL, even at the quarterback position, that coaching does not necessarily fix them. We've seen instances where it has fixed them. Daniel Jones is looking like a guy that I guess you could say it's working for him, but the last 2 weeks shows you that Daniel Jones is still just not a consistent quarterback. Turnovers are going to be a thing for a guy like that. But I think the biggest example of coaching not being able to fix talent is Kadarius Toney, the former first-round draft pick of the New York Giants, where when they couldn't fix him, they shipped him off to Kansas City. Kansas City thought they could fix him. They got minimal results out of him, and they shipped him off to free agency, where then he went to the Cleveland Browns, who thought that they could fix him or possibly get something out of him, and they couldn't get nothing out of him. The bottom line here, Daboll didn't win enough games. It shouldn't have had anything to do with designed quarterback runs, because what else do you expect Brian Daboll to do when you have Wan'Dale Robinson as your wide receiver 1 right now, and you have a running back in Tyrone Tracy, who's your running back 1, who had gone 14 straight games without breaching 60 yards. The groceries are not there for Brian Daboll to cook the necessary meal, which is why I personally think both of them, in Brian Daboll and in Joe Schoen, should have been fired. The Giants defense, they are more liable for the reasons of why the New York Giants are a bad team this year, because Joe Schoen tried to address that side of the ball. He didn't try to address the offensive side of the ball. Bringing in Cam Scadaboo, Thomas Fidone, and a new quarterback, those are not moves that insinuate that you want immediate results on the offensive side of the ball. But that is what we have gotten now with Jackson Dart at the quarterback position. And I really just can't help but think, what if Joe Shane would have got his way and we would have drafted Shedeur Sanders and thrown him out there as a rookie after 3 games of Russell Wilson? It likely would have looked a lot worse, because the only thing that is the saving grace on the New York Giants offense currently right now is Jackson Dart and his legs. Outside of that, you're looking at an offense that I don't know if any head coach could possibly get these type of results that Brian Daboll has gotten. Now, Diana Russini came out. She said no other staff changes are expected at this time in New York. Connor Hughes came out and he said the Giants view this as a test for Mike Kafka. And he also said the feeling internally is that the New York Giants believe the talent is better than the results have shown. This is, in my opinion, I think I could have came up here on the Giant overreaction and basically just said this, and this could have summarized the entirety of what is happening in the front office, in the organization with the New York Giants, across the board from wall to wall. This organization lacks self-awareness. And that's where I'll leave it. Let's see where the chat is at on this one, and then we'll get y'all up out of here. I didn't even expect this to go near 2 hours. I really didn't expect this, but we'll take a couple more, and then we'll get y'all up out of here. Tree says, I think Dart would not run as much if we had a run game and some weapons like a wide receiver. Dart does not run first. He keeps his head up and looks to throw first. I totally agree. Hyphen Wade said, talk that talk, Authentic. That's what I'm always do. Y'all know what it is. Tree says, thank you. Didn't see it on screen. I think he's talking about taking the under on it. DeIlla says the only 2 quarterbacks that can truly withstand this kind of play at the quarterback position are Josh Allen and Cam Newton, 2 players that are built like linebackers. That's very true. That's very true. Now, when we look at this particular game, though, DeIlla, is 4 design runs for a guy like Jackson Dart too much a game? In my opinion, I thought it was the perfect balance of how many times you should run the quarterback. But the reason why I brought up Tua, sometimes players just get the concussion more than other players. Like, I've seen quarterbacks who are not built like Lamar Jackson, or I'm sorry, built like Josh Allen or Cam Newton, that can still run the ball, take a tackle, and not get hurt. Now, we've seen the guys that do get hurt, like a Tyrod Taylor. It seemed like every time he ran, he got hurt, right? But I've seen Snoop Huntley go out there and run an offense that is literally predicated on the quarterback running the ball and come out of the game not getting hurt. I do think that not just yet, but we got to start looking at that injury-prone thing with Jackson Dart just a little bit as well. Tree says Dart will be fine and Dart will learn. He's going to hate missing a game. Absolutely. He's got to learn. There's no other way, or his career will be on the line. Gregory said, what's up, Authentic? Appreciate you being here today, Gregory. Let me see. Francis Moran said that Tony was a basket case. That's exactly why I brought him up, because coaching could not fix Kadarius Toney's mind. The talent was never the thing. His talent was there. Kadarius Toney is one of the twitchiest players the game has ever seen. I know that might sound a little egregious, but like, that dude was super twitchy. You got the ball in his hands. I mean, just go back and look at the game against the Dallas Cowboys where he put up 189, a rookie record for the Giants. Like, the dude was talented. Basket case, absolutely. Absolutely. The human joystick. Y'all remember that? Yeah. Which was really Dante Hall's nickname that we were trying to inherit and give to Kadarius Toney. Francis Moran says that Daboll was a poor manager for starters. Yeah, definitely a poor manager as far as late game situations. Just situational decision-making was an issue for him. Hyphen Wade said, shoot, after this one, he might as well start having that in his conscious and subconscious mind. Durability and longevity are the name of the game. He'll get it together, but this is concerning. It really is. If it's just like Tua, y'all. We're not there yet, but it's the same thing. Once you realize that you are a player that is prone to concussions, you need to find a way to correct that. And the way to correct that is slide more, go out of bounds more. Don't take on these hits. On the play where Jackson Dart ended up getting a concussion, it's one of those plays where you need to be conscious of where the first down marker is. And as soon as you get past that first down marker, you need to be diving head first. In this case, I don't think he could have slid because there was a lot of traffic around him, but he should have dove head first. And here I am sitting up here playing Monday morning quarterback, and I know it's different when you're on the field for sure. Bless Up said that Kadarius Toney is a wide receiver 3 on this team. He talking right now, and I don't disagree. Tree said, oh, my God, I'm so happy we didn't draft Shador. I'm there, too, and I wish Shador well, but I'm happy we didn't draft him. Hyphen said, whoo, bars. Let me see. Malik Baker says Mara needs to talk to some folks who will give him a real evaluation of their situation because they can't think this is a quick fix with a guy who helped tear it down in Joe Schoen. Yeah, this almost seems like a lazy move, and I expect that from John Mara considering that he is dealing with a life-threatening situation right now. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says I am rooting for Mike Kafka, but he ain't it. Don says Jackson was sliding this game. I don't know what went wrong. Was there a chance for him to slide? I didn't watch back. There was a chance for him to dive head first. He could have slid, but had he have slid, it wasn't that he was definitively over the first down marker. He was like trucking to go get it right. Like you could tell he ramped it up, put it in the second gear. And then as he did that, he crosses the first down marker by probably about a yard, and the ball gets punched out, and then he catches it up maybe 2 yards down the field. He catches it. And then, the rest is history. He's getting tackled to the ground and dealing with the concussion and whatnot. Tree says, I feel the talent is better than the results, but the team is still not built right, and Joe Schoen has been terrible. Yeah, I mean, when you see it game for game this year, the results should be better. If I had not looked at any of the games and you told me, hey, the New York Giants are 2-8 right now, it wouldn't have surprised me, right? Because you made no moves on the offensive side of the ball. I thought that the moves on the defensive side of the ball weren't enough to warrant that many more victories. I thought this was going to be a 6-win team at the end of the year. Kevy Witt says, I think Kafka could actually be a good head coach. A part of me thinks Daboll was a cloud over the coaching staff. He might be liked by players, but hated by his fellow coaches. I won't rule it out, but I think Shane Bowen is just absolutely just not the man for the job. Maybe Mike Kafka, but he's calling the plays. We'll see moving forward, though. We'll get some more results, which is all we can ask for. Big Low said it's like boxing. Some guys naturally have stronger chins. Yo, this is a bar right here from Low. This is a bar. It's inevitable. Some people can just take a punch harder than other people can. And it just seems that Jackson Dart, I mean, this guy's been in the concussion evaluation tent 4 times already. We're halfway through the season, and he missed the first 3 games. Gotta agree with Big Low on that, man. That's a good bar right there. Frank Chise 9 says Greg Roman will be a great coach for Dart. Could be. I mean, definitely ran that system with Lamar Jackson early on and got Lamar headed in the right direction. Mateo says, shit, I think I got hurt, or he says, I think got hurt on that hit where his helmet popped off and he wasn't running. No, it was definitely the play when he ran the ball for the first down. He lays on the ground for like 40 seconds, bro. I'll post it. It's actually already on my Twitter, but I could post it again so you can see it. It's definitely that play. Big Low said Dart has to start doing a lot of neck exercises. Yeah, bro. Strengthen it up, man. Strengthen it up. Adrian B says, I don't look at Dart as soft. Just found out his dad played safety, so I see the cloth he's cut from. I think he will be fine. He's just learning how the game goes right now, in my opinion. I think that's it, and this will be the turning point. This is where you have to make the decision to kind of alter your game a little bit and adjust to the speed of the NFL, and most importantly, adjust to the power of the NFL. Francis Moran says, this is news to me. Shane wanted Shador, and yes, that scares me too that he is still the general manager. Yeah, it's basically known that he was looking at Shador, and that was the guy he wanted. And, Brian Daboll, Jackson Dart was his guy. And a lot of people had it that way. I was out on an island with Jackson Dart being my quarterback 2, and Shador actually, by the time we got to the draft, being like my quarterback 4 or 5. I was out on an island. Most people had Shador as quarterback 2, Dart as 3, and Cam Ward as 1. So, and if you look, you have to do a little bit of deciphering, but Joe Schoen basically came out and said, like, yo, they wanted to draft Jackson Dart, and I allowed that. So that's what it is. David's in the building, says, damn, imagine Tony and Malik if Tony wasn't insane. I know, man. I know. The crazy part about it, though, is if Tony was actually good, they wouldn't have drafted Malik. Kevy Witt said, but I'd love to see Dart with a head coach like Joe Brady or Clint Kubiak. young offensive coordinators that like big plays but emphasize strong run games. Yeah, that'd be nice. It'd be very nice. Definitely be nice. I see Valentino in the building. What's going on, fam? Hope all is well. Getting ready to round this one out. Bless Up KG said flashback to Dart on Gruden quarterback camp. Warned him that he needs to protect himself more. Called him reckless. Evil Knievel. Have to protect the player from themselves. Very true. That's true. And there are times where you won't be able to do that because, KG, this is the option to do that. Do we just not run Jackson Dart? I don't think you could do that. He'd be a shell of himself if you remove that from him. Marjorie's asking, what was Dart's concussion history in college? I'm not 100% sure. You know the protocol is a little bit different, a little bit more strict in the NFL as well. But he was definitely knocked out of some games. That's for sure. I definitely saw that happen to him for sure. Null Void said, statement is an overreaction. When Jackson was on Coach Gruden's show, Coach Gruden told Dart he hated his decisions to take hits and that he should slide. That advice went in one ear and out the other. Yeah, and you just got to look at the circumstances where he got hurt. On third down, even when you look at your quarterback and you want him to slide more, on third down, when a quarterback doesn't slide, if he gets the first down and he gets up, nobody going to say nothing. And that's the tough part about football. It's a physical game. It's a physical game. Problem says, I liked Daboll a lot, man. I wish it worked out, and I wish him well. I'm disgusted Shane is actively looking for his replacement when it should have been him casted out first. Very true, very true, very true. Big shout out to Blue Sky Watcher one time in the building with the $9.99 super chat. Let me take a look over here, make sure I'm all caught up. I got one more after this. Blue Sky Watcher said, keep up the good work, Denick. I'm looking forward to where the Giants are going next. Right after Thanksgiving, I'm planning my draft snacks. I feel you, man. That's what I'm going to get to it too. Basically, December is going to be all dedicated to the draft. We're going to get an early start on it this year on this channel as well and share some of our thoughts early on, breaking down some of these players. It's one of my favorite times of the year over the past years because we've been in search for a quarterback. This year, it's going to be nice to be able to do this process without having to look for a quarterback. Wide receiver will be number one on my list. Inside linebacker, cornerback, offensive line, defensive line even, right after. So we'll see, man. I'll try my best to keep up the good work. Appreciate you supporting us over here, Blue Sky Watcher. And thank you for helping us raise the bar, my dog. The NYG71 is in the building. What's going on, fam? Coming in with the $5 super chat. He said, coaching candidates may not be so keen to come to New York City if they do not trust Joe Schoen. Brandon Brown, I feel, will get it right. Kafka is not him. Yeah, I don't got too much pushback on this. We'll see. It's going to be good to see Kafka get, at least a little bit of a opportunity here to prove his worth. If I was John Mara, I would have just waited to the end of the season and just fired everybody. But we'll see how things pan out. I did see somebody in the chat talking about if Kafka went 5-2. Excuse me. Very optimistic thinking. I'm not mad at it. But we'll see. We're gonna get these hypothetical scenarios will pan out in front of us, and we'll see how things go. And then once we get to the end of the year, I'll start coming up with some coaching candidates I think should be at the top of the list. But big shout out to NYG71. If that 71 is the year he was born, that's triple OG right there, man. Got to respect those opinions, man. Big shout out to the fam. Shout out to all you guys for helping us raise the bar over here today. It's been an interesting stream. Right before we went live, we got the news that Brian Daboll got fired, and now we're pretty much in loom for the rest of the season with Joe Schoen trying to figure out who's going to be the next coach. Bless Up KG said neck exercises. He said pause on that one. I feel you, man. The Illa says, I made a short today about how I disagreed with Pat Leonard and how he was constantly pointing the finger at Daboll for Dart's health. Check that out, Authentic. I will. And, Pat Leonard is family. I fuck with Pat Leonard heavy. Definitely like what he does, had me on his channel, but I'm with you on this. I disagreed with a lot of the things that Pat Leonard was, just that I'll call it the narrative or the opinions that he was pushing, and aiming it more at Brian Daboll than Joe Schoen. And, today I think I've done a good job of supporting some of those stances that, if you're going to fire Brian Daboll, make sure you fire Joe Schoen as well. But it looks like the New York Giants aren't doing that. So tough, man. Super tough. Shout out Q Burrow in the building. He said, I feel we chose the wrong Brian. Yeah, a lot of people have said this before. We heard this on a couple of other streams as well. He said, get Flores in here. He worked wonders in Miami until the owner and Tua drama began. Give the brother a chance. It'd be nice, but, Flores had a lawsuit against the New York Giants, so I don't think they're going to bring him in, barring a miracle. We shall see. Null Void said Philly needs an offensive coordinator. Imagine if Daboll became Philly's next offensive coordinator. Laugh my ass off. We talked about that earlier in the stream. I screenshot who it was, just, that brought that to my attention because, damn, that if that happens, I'm going to be heartbroken. That just seeing Daboll in the division along with Saquon and, that's going to stink, man. That's going to stink. Yeah, just thinking about it again makes me I lose my whole process of just any thought for words, man. It's tough. It's tough. Yeah, I see this one from Yup Don't Care, but he says Dart is winning precisely 0 collisions against NFL linebackers. Yeah, man. He's got to stop that shit. And I even said early on that it wouldn't be a problem. Don't worry about it. Dart's going to figure this shit out. A couple of hits, he'll figure it out and he'll learn to slide. And he's taking some big hits. And even after the big hits he took, a week ago, still, just nothing. No adjustment. Hyphen Wade says Lane ain't going nowhere. College has been too good to him. Plus, so what if he was his head coach at Ole Miss? How is he going to respond to everybody else on the team? I like Lane Kiffin. I think he's a really good coach, and I think a lot of what he does would translate to the NFL, most definitely. I see Genesis saying Dart should be shut down. Yeah, and I got to agree with Dean on this one. He's a rookie quarterback. He needs every rep he can get. And as long as he's cleared from the concussion protocol, yeah, he should be out there on the field. Amari Price says that Jackson reportedly lost a tooth on that hit. I remember seeing a couple of close-ups of him doing like that, checking for blood. I didn't know he lost a tooth. That would be wild right there. And yeah, I totally agree that he needs the reps, man. I'm totally in support of Jackson Dart playing as many snaps as he can possibly play. But man, big shout out to all you guys. It's going to be a tough couple of weeks coming up here, just for us as a fan base, and obviously on these giant overreactions. I truly can't thank y'all enough for showing up and showing out during these streams every week, because this is difficult, man. This is not easy for me, and I'm sure this can't be easy for y'all. And I'm somebody that I like to frequent Giants content. I like to check on my dogs. I like to check on Bobby. I like to check on Big Dash, Diggy, KB. I pop in on an entertainer live stream, play-by-play with Bad Dog, Mac the Giants fan, and all my dogs, man. If I forgot you, Deilla, all these people putting in their foot into this Giants content. And this is going to be a week where when I sign off here, all I'm probably going to do is look at some more All-22, but I'm not going to be checking out a lot of content. So, I truly do commend y'all for pulling up and just rocking out with us over here. We already have a very small corner on the internet. So, when people clock out mid-season, it does get difficult up here to be able to, provide high-quality content when the team is losing. That's really tough. So I commend y'all for that. And y'all know for me, when it comes to effort, you're not going to have to question the effort. And moving forward, we're going to continuously keep trying to raise that bar over here. And I think y'all do a fantastic job of helping us do that. So, I just got to commend you guys week in and week out, man. And I'll continue to do that, man. But it's been tough, man. It's definitely been tough. And I don't know where we go from here. We'll just kind of have to just wait and just see how things play out moving forward. But hearing that Joe Schoen is going to be the person who is responsible for our next head coach, that doesn't sit too well with me. But that's going to do it for us today. Big props to the Giants Nation, man. Y'all hang in there, man. Have patience, as much patience as you can possibly have. Have it. And if you made it to this point in the stream, let's see we'll put a brick in the comment section to represent the rebuild that's going to have to be built brick by brick, basically starting over. Biceps in the chat before we get up out of here, man. Yeah, thank y'all with the utmost respect, man, that y'all are still hanging out and still rocking out with us. Hyphen Wade says, why do we continue to do this? Should we shut it down? Still a whole lot of, let me see what he said. He said, still a lot more season to go. Still have to evaluate the process and see who will not be on this team next year. Yeah, man. It's tough. Jodgy05 said, real life, unless Caffrey goes 7-0, wins next week with Russ, and have Dart win the next 6 games after, and the defense improves, he can't be the next head coach. He'd clearly have to show he's special. I do agree with that. Francis said, thank you, Authentic. Brick. Salute to my dog, Francis, rocking out with us today, man. And I see y'all put the bricks in the emoji already in the chat section, man. Salute to y'all. I appreciate y'all rocking out with us, man. It definitely means a lot, because this shit is not easy coming up here year in and year out. We're talking 7 seasons now and only 1 season of good football for the New York Giants. And De'Illa said, take it easy, man. Yeah, you already know. I'm going to check out that short, too, De'Illa. I got to catch up on your channel. You are the one that I will promise I'm going to go check out some of your content. But that's going to end it here, man. Y'all know how we end every stream over here on Authentic in the Beard, on the Giant Overreaction. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound, and a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT and New York legend, Combat Jack. And that is a wrap. This will be the last game that we cover here on Authentic in the Beard with Brian Daboll as the head coach of the New York Giants. Who would have thunk it? End of an era, y'all. And as you guys have said, and I haven't, I will, definitely put this out there. I wish Brian Daboll well. And I hope he can continue to have a livelihood in the NFL, being an NFL head coach or even an offensive coordinator. I do think he was a bit scapegoated. I will leave it there. I don't think that Brian Daboll is a bad coach, but the results here with the New York Giants, absolutely bad. And you can't continue, employing people that aren't getting you the necessary results. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Monday evening. I know I will try to do so if I can pop up at some point this week. I absolutely will. But y'all stay blessed and enjoy the rest of y'all Monday evening. I will try to do the same, man. Y'all be good. I appreciate y'all support. Y'all be good, man. Peace out, y'all.